At the beginning of the story, we see two brothers, one named Paul and the other named Peter, trying to open a safe. Their entire family was involved in theft, and they had learned nothing but stealing from their parents. When the two brothers show the safe to their mother, Olivia, she is very happy because she now believes that her sons can successfully carry out any robbery. She then tells Paul and Peter, "I am leaving home and I will never see you both again." A long time ago, Olivia had gone on a heist with her boyfriend. However, while escaping from the police, her boyfriend was shot. Since then, Olivia had been hiding her boyfriend in her house. But today, after many days, the police had finally discovered where Olivia and her boyfriend were hiding. To escape from them, Olivia left home with her boyfriend, leaving Paul, Peter all alone. Over time, both brothers continued stealing. One night, they planned a heist where they had memorized every detail. They had to steal money and escape in their car. During the robbery, they began talking about their mother, discussing how she had betrayed them in childhood and left them, which was why they now had to resort to small thefts just to survive. As they carried out the heist, Paul focused on opening a room's locker since he was an expert at this and could unlock it easily. Meanwhile, Peter kept watch on the police, but sensed something was off. Before he could react, a police officer arrived and spotted Peter. The officer asked him, "What are you doing here so late at night?" Peter, trying to evade suspicion, gave vague and nonsensical answers, making the officer think he was crazy. When the officer moved forward to arrest Peter, Paul suddenly appeared from behind and knocked the officer unconscious. The brothers knew that if they stayed any longer, more police officers would arrive. However, as soon as they tried to escape, they found an entire police force waiting outside. The officers captured Peter and took him away, but Paul managed to hide and evade capture. Years later, we see Peter in prison. Surprisingly, the police released him early because he had struck a deal with a prison officer named Albert. Before Peter left, Albert warned him, "If you don't complete my task, I'll send you back to prison." Albert's father was a judge, and with his influence, he had secured Peter's release. Peter understood the situation well and left the prison. On the other hand, Paul had left the life of crime behind. He was now working at a restaurant like an ordinary person. He had also gotten married and was expecting a child. One day, while working, Paul's boss suddenly arrived and fired him because he had hidden his criminal past. Paul tried to explain that he was a changed man, but his boss refused to listen. When Paul returned home, he found that his brother Peter had come to meet him after many years. Paul asked him, "How did you get out of prison so soon?" Peter then told him everything. He had made a deal with a prison officer who wanted him to steal some diamonds. If Peter failed, he would be sent back to prison. Peter then asked Paul for help, saying, "With your skills, you can easily steal those diamonds." However, Paul refused. He now had a family and did not want to return to the criminal world like his mother and brother. Paul then said, "There's a small party at my house today. If you want to eat, you can join us." Peter had not eaten a proper meal in years, so he decided to attend the party. At the party, he started drinking and talking to a man. When Paul saw this, he was furious and threw Peter out of the party. Peter, now alone, checked into a hotel for the night, but his bad luck followed him. Albert arrived, punched him, and said, "I gave you a task, but instead, you're fooling around." Peter tried to explain, "I'm gathering a team for the heist." In anger, Albert pulled out a gun, pressed Peter's fingerprints on it, and said, "If you don't complete the job, I will submit your fingerprints to the police and get you locked up again." After Albert left, Paul arrived, looking for Peter. When he saw Peter's bruised face, he realized that someone had badly beaten him. Peter revealed, "That officer came and threatened me. He even has my fingerprints now, so if I don't do the job, he will send me back to prison." Paul understood that Peter was trapped from all sides, so he agreed to help. He said, "Whatever help you need in the heist, I will provide." Peter was overjoyed and said, "It's just a 2-day job, so tell your wife you'll be gone for 2 days." Paul agreed and called his wife, explaining that he had an urgent task with Peter and would return in 2 days. His wife understood and told him, "Finish your work and come back safely." The two brothers then left the hotel to begin their heist journey. The next day, Albert returned to the hotel to check on Peter, but he found only a dummy of Peter in the bed. He immediately realized that Peter had escaped. Albert informed his father, the judge, about Peter's escape. However, instead of being concerned, his father scolded him, saying, I gave you one simple job and you failed. No matter what happens, bring Peter back and get me those diamonds." Here, we understand that despite being a high-ranking judge, Albert's father was greedy for wealth. Albert did not want to disappoint his father, so he promised, "I will find Peter and steal those diamonds for you." Meanwhile, Peter and Paul traveled through the night and reached a house, Peter's girlfriend's house. The two met after many years, but she was angry because Peter had neither messaged her before going to jail nor contacted her after his release. However, when Peter explained his entire ordeal, she forgave him. They began talking romantically, and his girlfriend took him to a room. Meanwhile, outside, Paul was feeling bored when a chimpanzee approached him. The chimpanzee belonged to Peter's girlfriend. At first, Paul was scared, but soon, he relaxed and started interacting with the chimpanzee. They introduced themselves, and the chimpanzee signaled, "My name is Sam, and I'm happy living here." However, a few moments later, the chimpanzee started acting strangely and clung to Paul, making him nervous. Fearing what the chimpanzee might do, Paul quickly ran to his car and sat inside. Meanwhile, inside the house, Peter waited for his girlfriend to leave the room, and while she was away, he secretly stole her ID card from her bag. Then, he left and joined Paul in the car. On the way, Paul complained, "That chimpanzee was behaving very weirdly with me." Peter laughed and said, "That's my girlfriend's pet. He doesn't harm anyone." That night, the two brothers stayed at a hotel. While Paul was taking a shower, he found some letters among Peter's belongings. The letters were written by their mother, Olivia, to Peter. Paul realized that Peter had been in contact with their mother all along, felt betrayed. When Paul confronted Peter about it, Peter avoided the question and simply said, "Mom has cancer, and she doesn't have much time left. We need to be with her in her final moments." Paul now understood that their mother was also involved in the heist. Suddenly, the hotel room door opened, and their mother, Olivia, walked in. Seeing her, Paul was shocked. He immediately ran and jumped from the first floor, landing on a car, but surprisingly, he was unhurt. Later, the three of them sat in a bar and started talking. Paul angrily asked Olivia, "Where were you for the last 20 years? Why didn't you come to see us even once?" Olivia explained that she had been hiding from the world to escape the police. She then revealed that when she and her boyfriend were escaping, they had some valuable diamonds. To avoid being caught, her boyfriend swallowed them and later died. She then buried his body so that one day, she or her sons could retrieve the diamonds. Hearing this, Paul became furious and declared, "No matter what, I won't participate in this heist." And saying this, he went straight to the bathroom, where he began venting all his anger. Peter followed him and tried to reason with his brother, telling him that they weren't stealing anything, but simply reclaiming something that had belonged to them years ago. He somehow managed to convince Paul. Meanwhile, Albert was searching for Peter and went straight to his girlfriend's house, asking about him. At first, his girlfriend refused to reveal anything, saying that she had only met Peter and his brother yesterday. But Albert pressed a knife against her neck, forcing her to tell the truth. Terrified, she admitted that she had met Peter the previous day, but he had deceived her. He didn't come to see her. Instead, he had stolen her ID card and then disappeared. Just then, the sound of a chimpanzee screaming from inside the house caught Albert's attention. He looked outside and saw a chimpanzee attacking his owner, exerting its dominance. The chimpanzee dragged Albert inside and brutally beat. A short while later, Albert was seen running out of the house, badly beat. Meanwhile, Paul and Peter's mother had figured out where they had buried her boyfriend's body. Peter then used his girlfriend's ID card to go to a construction site, where he easily stole a JCB excavator. The three of them took the JCB to the location where they believed they could find the diamonds. However, after so many years, the place had become private property, but that didn't stop them. Without permission, they started digging a huge pit at the site where their mother's boyfriend's body had been buried. By now, only his bones remain. Along with the remains, they found the diamonds they had been searching for. However, another problem arose. The owner of the property was present. He spotted them and, along with his men, started chasing them. What followed was an intense chase, but the three thieves managed to escape successfully. They fled into a forest, where the two brothers decided to rebury their mother's boyfriend's remains. It was then that Paul discovered that he had been deliberately fired from his job, and Peter was behind it. Peter had wanted Paul to lose his job so that he would join them in this mission. This revelation shocked Paul, filling him with rage. He attacked Peter, beat him up, and threw him into the same pit where their mother's boyfriend's remains lay. Paul shouted angrily that he should have never participated in this heist. He stormed away and sat alone by a pond, where his mother approached him. She tried to calm him down, reminding him that Peter was still his brother and he shouldn't treat him this way. But Paul, still furious, refused to listen. He accused his mother of abandoning them in childhood and only returning when she needed something. His mother denied it, saying that she had always loved them deeply. She explained that the only reason she planned the heist was so that after she was gone, she could leave them with wealth from the diamonds. Meanwhile, Albert had also reached the forest. He found Peter and captured him, vowing to send him back to jail. Paul saw this from a distance and launched an attack on Albert to free his brother. However, in the struggle, Paul's fingerprints ended up on a gun, putting both brothers in a dangerous situation. Albert then demanded all the diamonds, promising to let them go in return. At that moment, their mother arrived with the diamonds. Albert threatened her, saying that if she didn't hand them over, he would shoot her sons. Shockingly, instead of saving them, their mother abandoned them and ran away with the diamonds. Albert chased after her, but she had already escaped. Paul and Peter were heartbroken, realizing that their mother had chosen wealth over them. Albert then took the two brothers in his car and headed toward the police station, telling them that because of their mother, he would now ensure they ended up in jail. Enraged, the two brothers started fighting each other inside the car, blaming one another for everything that had happened. Albert tried to stop them, but in doing so, he lost control of the car. The vehicle crashed, knocking Albert unconscious. However, the two brothers were unharmed. Seizing the opportunity, they took Albert's car and escaped. While resting at a spot, Paul called his wife and assured her that he would be home soon. Later, when he stepped outside, Peter told him to leave because he had a family to take care of and shouldn't be involved in this mess any further. Paul, however, refused. He reminded Peter that he was also family and that he wouldn't abandon him in such a situation. He also revealed that he knew where their mother had gone and suggested they find her and put an end to everything. Meanwhile, their mother was at a location converting the diamonds into cash. However, she didn't sell all of them at once. She kept 2 diamonds aside, thinking they might come in handy in the future. The dealer handed her a bag full of cash. As she stepped out with the money, Paul and Peter were already waiting for her. However, they weren't happy to see her with the money. They had no faith left in her and were convinced that she intended to keep everything for herself. Paul confronted her, asking what she planned to do with so much money. Their mother lied, saying that she was coming to them and intended to divide the money equally. But once again, she betrayed them. She grabbed the money and tried to flee. Paul chased after her into a mall, desperately trying to snatch the bag from her. However, during the struggle, the bag slipped from their hands and fell to the ground, landing right in front of Peter. At that moment, Albert arrived with the police. The officers surrounded them from all sides. Peter picked up the bag and tried to escape, but Albert fired a shot, warning him that the money belonged to him and he wouldn't leave without it. Albert searched the mall for Peter, who was hiding. Paul joined Peter, and upon seeing the bag full of money, he came up with an idea. He convinced Peter to step outside, and the two pretended to surrender to Albert. Albert demanded the bag of money, promising to let them go in exchange. However, the brothers started arguing again. Meanwhile, their mother was watching from above, regretting how her actions had put her sons in this situation. Paul, in anger, said they never should have come to the mall, while Peter blamed Paul for everything, saying that if he hadn't brought him here searching for their mother, he wouldn't be in this mess. Annoyed by their bickering, Albert fired a shot at a tree, scaring them. Then he demanded the bag again. Terrified, the brothers threw the bag toward Albert. As he opened it, an entire spray of chemicals burst into his eyes, something the brothers had planned in advance. Blinded, Albert staggered as the very tree he had shot at collapsed onto him. An explosion occurred, and Albert was crushed and left unconscious. Their mother then arrived. She handed them the bag of money, saying she didn't want to see them go to jail. She revealed that she had cancer and wouldn't live much longer. She picked up a gun and surrendered herself to the police so that her sons could be free. Paul and Peter escaped with the money. Paul then went straight to a judge, handed over all his share of the money, and requested the gun that had Peter's fingerprints on it. The judge accepted the money and gave Paul the evidence, allowing Peter to remain free. Paul returned home, where his wife had prepared dinner for the family. Peter also joined them, and they all had dinner together. Peter revealed that he had used his share of the money to buy a large piece of land, which he registered under Paul's daughter's name to secure her future. Paul, in turn, revealed that he had used all his money to retrieve the gun with Peter's fingerprints. Both brothers were now penniless, but they were happier than ever, enjoying their lives. Later, they visited their mother in jail. Eventually, Paul had a daughter, and when their mother was released, she was overjoyed to see her complete family together. At the end, Peter revealed that their mother had not converted all the diamonds into cash. She had swallowed 2 of them when surrendering to the police, meaning they still had the diamonds, and their family could once again become wealthy. And with that, the movie ended. So, how did you like this story? Let us know by liking and commenting.